All right, we are working in worsted weight yarn. I have here Rainforest Heather color. It is a gorgeous dark green. So number 4 medium worsted weight yarn and a 5.5 millimeter hook, or the hook you need to get gauge. When we're making a sweater, gauge is super important, so you want to check that first before you begin. I'll link up that video for you in the description. Plus, I will add in the description the yardage amount that you need for each size to make your very own sweater. Okay, we are starting with ribbing on the bottom of our sweater, and we're starting with our back panel. So that means we're going to do a simple single crochet ribbing. So I'll start with a slip knot on my hook and chain 5. Then I'll skip the first chain and work into the back bump of the second to make a single crochet, and repeat that across the row of chains. Okay. Now to continue our ribbing, we're going to turn. We'll start with the chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. And we'll start in that same first stitch, and we're going to place 1 single crochet under the back loop. So we're going to go to the middle of the top of the stitch, under that back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 to make a single crochet. Keep working single crochets in the back loop across this row. This is what makes our ribbing stretchy. And that is it. That is your 1 row repeat. So now you are going to turn and chain 1, and keep repeating single crochet in the back loop for the length of your ribbing that you need. You will repeat that row 2 until you have 72 rows for small, 82 rows for medium, 90 large, 98 extra large, 104 2x, 110 3x, 116 4x, and 124 rows for 5x. Okay, when you get your ribbing to length, meet me back here and we will work on row 1 of the back panel. Okay, so once your ribbing is as long as you need it for your size, you can get started on your panels, either the front panel or the back panel. You'll start all the panels the same way. Okay, so on to our panels. So whether you worked a front panel and you have 42 rows, or you worked a back panel and you have 86 rows, you're going to start them the same way. So now we are going to work along the long side of our ribbing here, just from where we are back that way. And we are going to chain 3, skip 1 row, and work 1 extended single crochet into the side of the next row. So the extended single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, you'll have 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 1. That's the extended part. Then we just do a regular single crochet, so we yarn over and pull through those 2. Then we're going to chain 1. And that is going to be our repeat across this ribbing here. Is we skip a row, and then we work into the next row with an extended single crochet and a chain 1. Okay, skip, work into this one. And it doesn't necessarily matter where you work into your rows, but if you're consistent, it will look the best. So that's why I have chosen to always work into the middle of this stitch here. Okay, so keep working that all the way across your row. Okay, we are at the end of our row here, and we are going to end the row by placing a extended single crochet in the last row. So my knot. Here we go. Okay, adding an extended single crochet in the last. So the only thing we're doing different is not chaining one, and we are having those right next to each other instead of a skip there. So our chain 3 here counts like an extended single crochet and a chain 1. So each of our pike stitches has the extended single crochet and the chain 1. So they're all in 2s. So the chain 3 counts as 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so either however you start or however you finish your ribbing, you'll have 2 that are right close together without skipping a row. Okay, so now we are ready to work on to row 2. So we'll turn and start with our chain 3. That counts as our first pike stitch. And we are going to skip the chain 1, which is here, and we are going to work into the next extended single crochet, which is right here. This vertical yarn, that's where you can insert your hook. If you look at the top, we have our chain 3 that goes for this one, skip 1, work into that one, and that's exactly where we're going. Okay, so in that one we are putting another extended single crochet and do a chain 1. And now we just keep repeating that across. Skip the chain 1, work into the extended single crochet, make an extended single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, repeat. Okay, we're at the end of row 2 here, and at the end of our row we have our chain 3 from the start of row 1. So for the last stitch in row 2, we are going to place an extended single crochet in the second chain of that chain 3. So I'm just going to go under the top 2 loops of the chain stitch and make my extended single crochet. And then you're going to turn, and we are going to repeat that one row until your back panel is 34 inches long for small, 35 medium, 36 large, 36 and a half extra large, 37 and a half, 2x, 38 inches 3x, 39 4x, and 42 inches for 5x. You can adjust the length by adding or subtracting rows. Just be sure to make your front panels the same length as your back panel. Once your back panel is complete, you'll make 2 front panels, and you'll start them the same way with ribbing rows. For small, you'll make 36 rows of ribbing, medium 42, large 46, extra large 50, 2x 52, 3x 56, 4x 60, and 5x 62 rows of ribbing. Then you'll turn and work on the long edge just like we did for the back panel, working to the same length as your back panel. Your front panel stitch count will be 37 for small, 43 medium, 47 large, 51 extra large, 53 2x, 57 3x, 61 4x, and 63 stitches for 5x. After you've made your back panel and 2 front panels, you can set those aside. We will seam them together at the end. Now we're going to move on to making our sleeves. Okay, so now to make the sleeves, we're going to start with ribbing for our cuff, and then we're going to work our regular stitch pattern that we've used for our panels around the cuff, increasing every so often to widen our sleeve to our widest arm width. Once our sleeve is as wide as we need it, we will just work up a section of regular rows where we don't increase, we just get the length. A few notes about the sleeves: we'll need an even stitch count, so if you need to add or subtract stitches to adjust your sleeve, keep it even. And then we are also doing a technique called join and turn in the round, and that is how we can keep the same texture of our stitch pattern. So we're working a row around, and then we join it with a slip stitch, and then we turn and work back the other way, just like we would with rows. So I'll demonstrate that for you in the sleeve video next. Okay, for a sleeve cuff, we're going to chain 9. And then single crochet in the second chain from your hook and in each chain across. Then turn your work, chain 1 to start a row, and then back loop only, single crochet in each stitch across. And you're just going to repeat that one ribbing row for the length of your sleeve cuff. Small, medium, and large work 24 rows of ribbing, extra large 28 rows of ribbing, all other sizes 32 rows of ribbing. You want your sleeve cuff to be about 8 to 10 inches long to fit snugly around your wrist. Now fold your sleeve cuff in half and slip stitch the ends together. I chain 1 and then go into the first stitch on this side of the ribbing and into the stitch across on the other side of the ribbing. Yarn over and pull that through. And then I'll just repeat that in each stitch down until the cuff is joined. Okay, once our cuff is joined into a circle, you can flip it so that the seam edge is on the inside, and we're going to work around the top here. Our same stitch pattern, so we'll start with the chain 3, which will count as our first pike stitch. For small, medium, and large, work 32 stitches around your cuff, extra large 36, all other sizes 40 stitches. To work this, we are doing our extended single crochet, chain 1, and then skip a row of ribbing and then repeat that around. And we'll need to increase on every 4th stitch by adding 2 of them side by side. So instead of skipping a row, you can add one there. That way you make sure you have the right stitch count. As I come to the end of the row here, I'm going to make sure I have the right number of stitches around my sleeve cuff so I can add more here at the end if I need to. I do, so now I'm just going to slip stitch to that second chain, and that completes round 1 of our sleeve. Okay, now it's time to start our round 2. So we're going to turn our work, chain 3 to start round 2. In the next chain space, we are going to work our extended single crochet in our chain 1. And that is our first increase because we're working into the chain space there. So I'm just going to mark that to easily keep track of it. Then we're going to work like normal around. We're going to work into our next extended single crochet with an extended single crochet and a chain 1. And then we're going to skip the next chain 1 and work into the next extended single crochet with our extended single crochet and chain 1 stitch. And we'll repeat that around and join to the second chain we made. So we're only increasing 1 stitch at the beginning of round 2, and then we work normally around. Okay, we're on our last stitch of round 2 here. And we are going to join to the second stitch of that first chain 3. slip stitch, and turn. Okay, so round 2 you end with 2 more stitches because you do your chain 1, your extended and your chain 1. All right, ready for round 3. Chain 3. We're going to skip the chain space and work into the extended single crochet. And we're just going to repeat that around. Skip the chain, work extended single crochet, chain 1 into the next stitch, and then we'll join to our chain 2 and turn. After you join to the second chain, turn, and we're ready to work round 4. Chain 3. Then we're going to skip the next chain space and work into the extended single crochet stitch like normal. And we're going to repeat that around until we have 1 chain space left. So right here, we're going to work into that at the end of the round to do an increase at the end of round 4. Okay, we're at the end of round 4. We have a chain space left. So in that chain space, we're going to work 1 more stitch. Our extended single crochet and chain 1. So we're increasing by 2 stitches here, and then join to the second chain to join the round. And now you'll have 2 more stitches, 36 for size medium. Turn your work and you're ready to work round 5. Round 5 and round 6 are repeats of round 3, which is a regular round. So now we're going to work 2 regular rounds with no increases. Let me go ahead and mark the last increase. Okay, after you work 2 repeat rounds of round 3, 2 regular rounds, we're on our repeat for the sleeve. So now you're going to repeat rounds 2 through 6 until you have 50 stitches for small, 52 medium, 56 large, 58 extra large, 62x, 64 3x, 68 4x, or 70 5x. And you want your sleeve to measure wide enough for your armhole that you left, so you want it to be at least 7 inches small, 7.5 medium, 8 large, 8.5 extra large, and 2x, 9 for 3x, 9.75 for 4x, and 10 inches wide for 5x. You can, of course, increase your sleeve more or less to your liking, but you're going to continue to repeat round 3 after that until your sleeve is long enough. So first you're going to repeat rounds 2 through 6 until you get your sleeve width. And then you're going to continue the length as needed. For small, you'll want 42 rounds, 44 medium, 46 large, 48 extra large, 52x, 52 3x, 54 4x, and 56 rounds for 5x, or your sleeve length measures 18 inches small, 19 inches medium, 19.75 for large, 20.5 extra large, 21.5 2x, 22 inches 3x, 23 inches 4x, and 23.75 inches for 5x. And that will include the ribbing, the full length of your sleeve. And you can try your sleeve on to fit and make sure that it's fitting nicely for you at any time. Okay, so now you're going to do your repeat rounds of 2 through 6. Remember, on a round 2 you increase at the beginning. Round 3 is no increase, just a regular round. Round 4 is an increase at the end. Then you have 2 rounds of round 3 for 5 and 6. And this will give you a gradual increase over your sleeve and a nice fitted cuff for your wrist. Okay, now we are going to make the pockets. So we'll start with making our chain of 24. Okay, then we're going to single crochet in the second chain from our hook. Then we'll chain 1, skip the next chain, work an extended single crochet, and chain 1, and then repeat that across. Skip, extended single crochet, and chain 1. Okay, then when we have 2 chains left, we're going to skip 1 chain and we're going to place 1 extended single crochet in the last. Then we'll turn and chain 3, which will count as our first extended single crochet, and chain 1. Skip the chain, work into the extended single crochet, make an extended single crochet, chain 1, and repeat that across. The end of row 2, we are skipping the chain and working into the top of the last extended single crochet to make 1 extended single crochet and then turn. And we'll just repeat row 2 for 14 rows until your pocket is as tall as you like. Okay, once your pocket is as tall as you like, we are going to add ribbing to the top. You can also customize the length of the ribbing here. I'm going to chain 5, and then single crochet in the second chain from my hook, and in each chain down, which will give me 4 single crochet stitches. Now I'm going to attach the rows I am making here, ribbing to the top of the pocket with a single crochet 2 together. So I'm going to go in here, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both. Now I'm going to turn and I'm going to work back into my stitches. I'm not going to work into the first stitch here, which is the single crochet together that I did. I'm going to chain 1, skip over that joining stitch, and just work in my 4 single crochets I made, going in the back loop to make ribbing, single crochet in the back loop of those 4 stitches. I get to the end, I'm on the outside row here, so I just turn. And now I'm going to work back up, join to the next chain stitch and extended single crochet stitch. So I'll chain 1 to start, back loop only single crochet in those 4 stitches. Right, and then right here we have my chain 1 and the single crochet 2 together from the last row. So we're just leaving that unworked and bringing my stitch down to join with the single crochet 2 together here. Then I will turn, chain one, and work back up the ribbing the same way. Okay, so in that way, I'm going to crochet ribbing as I go, attaching it to the top of the pocket with a single crochet two together, which does not count as a part of our stitches there. It's just a joining technique. If you get confused, remember to count your stitches so you're not accidentally crocheting into spots you don't need. Again, here we have our chain one and our joining stitch that we're not going to work into. Sorry, you can also slip stitch like that. Okay, so let me stop there and show you a little bit. So there you're going to have a little inch or so, inch and a quarter of ribbing. So you just work that along the top. Okay, when we get to the end of our pocket, we have our chain three. So we're going to do a single crochet two together through the chain space, and then we're going to go into the second chain with the second part of that single crochet two together and finish it there. Turn and chain one, and then we'll do one more row of our single crochets in the back loop. And that will be your last row of ribbing for the pocket top there. The finished pocket is 6 inches tall by 6.5 inches wide. Okay, now we're ready to seam our cardigan. You're going to lay out your back panel and lay the front panels on top. To make sure your panels are facing the same way, you can make sure your tails are on the same side. Okay, thread your yarn needle with the long tail you left or a length of matching yarn. We're going to start on the outside corner and we're just going to match up stitch for stitch. Seaming the shoulders is an easy way to do it. And I'll go under 2 loops usually for a sturdy seam with worsted weight yarn. I start here with my locking stitch where I go up and over, similar to a whip stitch. And then I switch to the mattress stitch where I just go zigzag back and forth under my loops, matching up stitch for stitch all the way across the shoulder seam. Here I have it zoomed in a bit for you so you can see how I'm going underneath 2 loops of 1 stitch on one panel across to the matching stitch on the other panel. Pull it snug, not too tight, and then repeat into the next stitches. Here at the end, where I'm finishing the front panel to the middle part of the back panel, I am going to go into that second stitch of our chain 3 that we start our rows with, and then I go up and over again and back into the same spot doing another locking stitch so that both ends are a little bit secure. So here's my seam. You can see we're on the wrong side, so we won't see as much of it when we turn it right side out. And now I'm going to work on the second front panel, seaming it in the same way. Okay, so now I have my second shoulder seam completed there. Once we have our shoulder seam together, we can move on to seaming the sides. And so I'm just going to shift and turn this to the side. Still have my front panel on my back panel, and I'm going to start on the hem end. So I'm just going to line it up and get myself set up here. I'm going to use a long tail again, or a length of matching thread, and my yarn needle to sew from the bottom of the hem up to the armhole. Thread your yarn needle with a long length of yarn. Okay, from the bottom corner, we're going to use our locking stitch to go through both bottom stitches, up and around and back through the same stitch. And since I have a long length here, I'm going to leave a tail to make sure that I can weave that in. Okay, and these first few stitches are the side of our ribbing, which look like stitches, so they're pretty easy to use our mattress stitch to go in and out, zigzag underneath the two loops. So I'll do that. Now we're going to be seaming the sides of our rows, which is a little more challenging to keep them lined up. So you'll want to check every few rows to make sure that you're staying lined up. You can use stitch markers or pins to pin it together along the edge to help you make sure they stay lined up and they don't shift on you. But we continue seaming just like the shoulders, except you're on the side of the rows and you want to keep them lined up. You'll go under 2 loops of yarn if you can manage it. It's a little bit more work when you're working into the side of the rows to do the seaming, but you're just going to catch those 2 loops and go back and forth in the same way. And once you get into the rhythm and you see what you're looking for on the side of the rows, we have our chain 3 starts and our ending extended single crochets that we're looking at. Then you will get familiar with it and you'll speed up a little. I'm going to take a second here and flip it around to the right side, and you can see how that seam just disappears. You don't really notice it much, but we're keeping it lined up nice and neat. Okay, let me do another quick check here. Flip on the right side. You can see our rows are staying lined up. And so we just continue seaming all the way up until it's time to stop for your armholes. So we're going to leave an unseamed section at the top. And for each size, that will be 7 inches for small, 7.5 medium, 8 inches large, 8.5 for extra large and 2X, 9 inches for 3X, 9.75, 4X, and 10 inches for 5X. So seam all the way up until your armhole measurement. Then you're going to repeat that on the other side for your side seam. Okay, once our sweater panels are seamed together, it's time to sew on our sleeves. To do that, you are going to keep your cardigan body still on the wrong side, so you'll be able to see your seam edges. And we're going to keep the sleeve right side out, which is how we made it. And we're going to slide the armhole end of the sleeve into the cardigan so that the armhole end of the sleeve matches up with the armhole opening we made on the cardigan body. Okay, so you want to make sure the seam of the sleeve is on the bottom where your elbow will be, and line up the armhole end of the sleeve with the armhole opening so that we can sew those pieces together. And we're just going to continue using the mattress stitch like we have been. Thread your long tail you left or a length of yarn that matches into your yarn needle, and then you're going to start there at the bottom of your armhole and catch 2 loops of yarn if you're working into the side of a row like we will be on the sweater body. And then you're going to go under a stitch on the end of the sleeve, so that's the easier part. And you'll just want to match up and make sure your sleeve seam stays there at the body seam as you go around, and you'll need to stretch a little to make sure it fits, but they should be equal measurements or just slightly off. So if you need to add stitches, be sure to do that to your sleeve, or if it's too big, you could sew up at the side of the body a little bit more. So see here, you're going under 2 and then under a stitch, and then into the side of the row. So just find 2 loops to go under, just like we've been doing. Since your sleeve end is stitches, it'll be stretchier than the side of your body, so that one will be easier to maneuver as you make your way around. Okay, here we are at the end. We've gone all the way around, sewing our sleeve end to the armhole end. And now I'm just going to make sure we get this last bit attached, and then you can weave those ends away, and you'll want to repeat attaching the sleeve to the other armhole on the other side. Let me just flip it out around here for you so you can see this finished seam and the sleeve attached to our cardigan body. All right, now it's time to add my favorite part, the lapel or collar, and we are going to be working on the right side of our cardigan. We've seamed the shoulders and the sides, we have all of our pieces made, so this is one of our final steps. Okay, I'll join yarn with a slip knot to my hook, and then I'm going to attach it to the cardigan on this bottom right corner here with a slip stitch. Okay, I'll start with the chain 1, and now I'm going to half double crochet evenly up the front panel around the neck and back down the opposite side, the opposite panel there. So I'm just placing half double crochets into the side of each row, just like we seam them together. I'm going to go under 2 loops to catch one row, 1 stitch spot. The exact number is not important. What you'll want to make sure of is that it's not cupping or curving in too much. That means you're putting too few stitches. And if it starts to get super wavy, then that means you're putting too few. Usually 1 stitch per row is good because this half double crochet stitch is similar height to the side of the extended single crochet. Okay, so you're just going to keep working up here. When you get up to the neckline where your panels joined at the shoulders and the back, you don't need to do anything special. Just again, you're going to be working into the sides of rows and turning there. So make sure your yarn isn't pulling too much one direction or another, and then continue down the opposite panel, half double crocheting all the way down to the bottom hem. Okay, so I've half double crocheted up the inside of my front panel, and now I've gone around the back of the neck there, and I've turned, and I'm going to go back down the opposite side, continuing to half double crochet evenly down. Once we've gone all the way around, we're going to turn and work back up with the chain 1, and now we're going to half double crochet in the 3rd loop. This is called the camel stitch. So you're going to just place regular half double crochets under that horizontal line that runs on the back. Half double crochet under that 3rd loop all the way back up and around. This is going to create that squishy ribbing for us. And that is going to be our 1 row repeat for the lapel. And you'll want to keep repeating that until your lapel measures 3 to 5 inches depending on your preferences there. Okay, we've finished our lapel that goes around our neck, and it is ultra cozy. And now the last thing we have to do is attach the pockets. So what I've done is put the sweater on and found about hip height where you would put these pockets. And then I just stuck 1 pin in to hold it in place. So now I'm going to check how many rows up and how many rows over and get it centered and count the rows before I sew down these 3 sides so that I can duplicate it on that side. Since yarn stretches, we want to count the rows and not just measure inches because since it stretches, it will be off if you do it just by inches. Okay, so find your best placement for you can comfortably put your arms in. This is going to be based on the length of your sweater, your height, your arm length, so there's not really a standard there, but about where your jeans or your pants pockets sit on your hips is a good spot for patch pockets. Just remember, as you wear your sweater, it'll lengthen down and stretch down as the yarn relaxes and you use it, so you don't want to put them too low, but also not too high either. You can see here from the bottom what's at about 4 or 5 inches. Okay, so I have pinned it in place once, and I'm just going to find my seam here and see how many stitches over I have. It already about center, it looks like. Yep, 5 stitches, 5 sets on either side here. So I will call that good, and I'm just going to stretch it up to the bottom of this row. And I don't really want to pin it facing me. So taking the time to pin it is going to make it a lot easier to sew down because then it won't shift and whatnot. So I've got 5 sets of stitches here and here, so I'm going to come down here and also do the same thing. Make sure we maintain that 5 again because of the stretching of the yarn, both the pocket and the sweater. Okay, and the same thing here. We have 2, 4, 6, 8. We are at about 10 rows here. So I am trying not to put that where it's going to poke me. And then I'll come over and do the same thing here, keeping it level with this row that I counted and keeping it level with this stitch. Okay, so when I have the 4 corners done, you can go ahead and add more pins along the edges you're going to sew down. Just to keep you on track as you go. Okay, now for some reason on this pocket I forgot to leave a long tail, so you'll leave a long tail and you'll just start sewing from this corner and go down and around. I am going to use a length of yarn and sew it down with the yarn needle now. So you can do it with a whip stitch or mattress stitch, whatever your sewing skills or preference. Make sure you leave a tail here to weave in at the end, and we're going to do our locking stitch where we go back around, where we go over and around and then back up through the same spot we first came through. That's my other tail from the pocket. Okay, and we're just going to sew it the same way we sewed any of our other seams. Again, oh, I didn't pin this side, did I? Keeping track that we follow the line. This is a pretty linear looking stitch. There's a lot of lines that you can just easily visually see, so you'll be able to follow it pretty simple. But when I pull it, you see it stretches and whatnot. So that's why we're using our pins to keep it in place. And you check it every so often. So like most of the sewing I'm doing, I want it to be over or under 2 loops so that I'm not pulling or stretching it too much. I'm working on the right side here with the pocket because I would rather see how it looks and make sure that I am keeping it looking nice. And I'm kind of just going up and over here. And I'm not really worried about what it looks like on the inside of the sweater. And I'm just going around the sweater panel. So I'm already getting it stretched out of place a little there. And back up through the stitch. You can check it as you go, make sure it's holding down there. Okay, then we just turn our corner and keep going like so. Okay, so I'm going all the way through here to make sure that edge is secure. I'm going to go back over that little piece there. Okay, and now I'm just going to weave those ends in, and then I will duplicate that on the other side, the other pocket side there. And again, just counting stitches in rows so they are both equal and they'll stretch together.